for me, paranoia is or has latent potential as a vehicle of awakening, because it's that extreme end of tapping into something where the I is so amplified, and it's almost like when it becomes so immensely amplified, it can just collapse in on itself into that experience of oneness, right?
Right.
And I was writing today and trying to articulate this, because I've been really lucky to have what I'd call like a contrast experience, which is something outside of those grooves that I can try and grow towards, through my meditation practice and awakening, to use that term loosely. And at different stages of my development, I started to notice that I'd have like extreme paranoia in certain situations, but then I'd also have what would be called a oneness experience.
Yeah.
And as you say, where you cannot even define a part, it's just like all process.
Yeah.
It's just the most beautiful and yet somehow natural experience ever. And I was in a similar state to that this morning. And from that contrast, I was able to explore this oscillation. And there was something in it where, like, in that, for me, the experience of oneness, there's like an anonymity to it. I'm aware who I am. Like, I'm not completely dissociated. I know who I am. I'm present. I'm so connected to my environment that it's almost like that I sense isn't online.
Yeah.
And it connects me deeper. Well, I'm just a part of it, so I'm in that flow. Whereas the paranoia is disconnecting.
Yeah.
And yet it's like, let's say that the energy or consciousness, the interconnected consciousness, is filtering through some system that says I'm the center of everything, rather than I'm in everything and I'm just part of it. It's like that I amplifies. And I just wanted to share that as an example, because I've been really like meditating on this for a long time, because that's been a groove of mine that is teaching but also highly distressing as well, to say the least. But yeah, that was just a sharing to see what that kind of, where that leads, I guess.
Well, I think it's a lot of places for me to go from that. The ACT community has done a lot of work around psychosis, and we've made some progress in the sense of, boy, if you had to pick a population that's objectified and dehumanized by the system, whew,
Mm-hmm.
where, if you get fully into that whole thing as the mental health system, I mean, next thing you know, the only things people want to talk about with you are hallucinations and delusions and medications, and that's it. That's who you are, and that's who you're going to be treated as. And there's folks walking around who are voice hearers who are doing perfectly well as lawyers or doctors or whatever. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not just Nash and his Nobel Prize. That's just one example. It's everywhere. So how are we to be doing that? Well, it seems scary to people, but I think you're right that that flip, like the paranoid place of I am threatened by and fearful of, because has this edge, of me and not me. And they're in a relationship that's dangerous and it's grooved. And some of those things are predicted. I'm just going to riff a little bit. Do you know that if you want to predict the developmental trajectory of who can develop psychotic breaks and paranoia, there's things in there that are odd. I hate this kind of thing. Oh, you just got the psychosis gene or something. It's not. I mean, of course, genes are part of it. Of course, they're part of it. But here's one that's really powerful. People who have to change language communities early, right at the point where self is establishing, move to a country where they don't speak your language at age 4 or 5, that, your probability of actually developing, and you can kind of see why. There's could you go into I and not I, and that
yeah, the language
early,
vowel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, early kind of traumatic or negative experiences where you can retreat into that, or that's retreat's not the right word. Defend naturally, defend yourself. And as a child, of course, what else would you do? That's exactly what you should do. The experience of that allows empathy and connection and perspective taking, of taking I, you, here, there, now, then, time, place, and person, the perspective taking cognition that is there even before language. I mean, babies will understand something about the intentionality. If you come in and you ask a baby to give you something by just pointing, they don't have even a single word yet. Depending on the context, they will either give it to you or put it in the box because you're playing cleanup time and it's time to put away your toys. They will guess about what you mean by that point. We're kind of deeply connected in that way as social primates. And the core, I think, of that collapsing and expanding that you're talking about is that I only makes sense in the context of you. Here only makes sense in the context of there. There's no here without there. And if you go there, there becomes here, and here becomes there.
Yeah.
Now and then, the same thing. And that's fine, but recognize that they're connected. And under special circumstances, psychedelic assisted therapy, we're deep into doing that. Psychosis, under special conditions, I think the I here nowness of awareness that is not objectified becomes objectified typically. I'm like this. And then you start either defending or amplifying or wanting everybody to know about it if you're a narcissist or whatever. But you have a story and you're in the story and now you're captured by the story. And, so self and the concept of self, ego, etc., easily forms out of I, here, nowness. But it isn't just I, it's I, you. It isn't just here, it's here, there. It's part of, and under extraordinary conditions, it's like 3 comets coming together to I, here, now. It expands out and it's all of us, everywhere, always.
Yeah.
If you ask the questions right, 97% of people will admit to experiences of sudden expansion of I becoming a we, or of now becoming always, or of here becoming everywhere. I mean, it isn't just Tolle.
Yeah.
It's just the Buddha.
Putting language to it, but
and our spiritual leaders are extraordinarily good. They almost always have had a mystical spiritual experience, almost always. And they will talk about these kinds of things, but they turn it into a way, a path, or something. It has to be done in words, and therefore, well, fine, nothing wrong with that. But can we find a place where we can work on the suffering that comes from our egoic I in a way that doesn't require you genuflecting in front of a spiritual leader and having the master give you the answers, but that is a kind of a humbler form of that's not prideful even about the pathways, and that empowers people to find these consciousness expansion. I don't want to turn this into a stone in a box, it's precious, because it's yet another round of the same thing. But can we empower people to find a place in which I dissolves into we, and here to there, and now to always, or now to then to time itself, disappearing. I think the answer is probably yes. And one reason I'm working so hard at psychological therapy is that even though I'm a child of the 60s and I know what a train wreck that was done the first time, and I literally lost friends to it. I mean, I literally had them die in how badly it was managed. I still do believe I'm enough of an old hippie to believe that, you know, the indigenous peoples are right. There's ways of using aids, whether it's being in a sweat lodge or chanting or praying, or yes, mushrooms or whatever the thing is, guided properly. That doesn't make it a certainty, but it makes it more likely, where you bring people in to a place where they have a chance to break out of the cage that we tend to live inside, the storied, defended, artificially amplified self, into this no thing sense of self.